or do not seem to know things like the stance on the protection of historical landmarks, the strong feelings to protect the Bootleg Canyon area from an OHV use, or the fact that if the city doesn't take some type of action to create regulation and an education program with maps and laws governing golf carts and OHV use, then the state legislature may do it for us without the consideration of our very special community interests. Likewise, I know that those interested in this program have not heard some of the concerns of citizens that have very worthy concerns and need to further that discussion. Just yesterday, I received a letter that addressed several salient points for discussion. That addressed very good points for discussion and ways to mitigate those concerns. But it was also obvious that this resident had very much been misled by the lack of formal information on this possible program because he had incorrect statements on some of his key points. How could we either write a legitimate form of an argument if they have zero idea what the actual program might look like? By holding a workshop, both Passage volunteers and Against Passage volunteers could better understand each other's points, and thereby could be very worthwhile dialogue that would be very beneficial to the content of the ballot question support material for both arguments, thereby giving the public more well-rounded research. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any others wishing to speak on an agenda item tonight? All right, we'll close initial public comment and we'll move to approval of our regular agenda. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff is recommending that we remove item number 8.
Okay. Mr. City Manager?
No further changes.
Mr. City Attorney?
No further changes.
Okay, and come back to council for action.
I'll move for approval with changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next is approval of our consent agenda. Madam City Clerk. Mr. City Manager.
No changes.
Mr. City Attorney.
No changes.
Council.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously as well. All right, and I do believe we have at least one or maybe a few fourth graders here tonight. Could you stand so we could recognize you, please? All right. Thank you for coming. You're certainly welcome to participate. We love having you here. Those guys are working on their Nevada Citizen, and it's always great to see them. Okay, we are then on to our regular agenda tonight, which is our first item is item number 7, introduction of bill number 1844. Can I have somebody introduce that, please?
Mayor, I'll introduce bill number 1844, waive the reading except for title.
Bill number 1844, an ordinance of the City of Boulder City approving option agreement number 12-1408E, an amended option agreement between the City of Boulder City and Schuyler Townsite LLC to extend the option period through 2022. Bill 1844 will be considered at the January 22nd regular City Council meeting.
Thank you. Next is item number 9, introduction of bill number 1846.
Mr. Mayor, introduce bill number 1846, waive the reading except for title.
Bill number 1846, an ordinance of the City of Boulder City approving land sales agreement number 19-1809 between the City of Boulder City and BC Holdings LLC for 6,885.47 square feet of land located at 395 Avenue I. Bill 1846 will also be considered at the January 22nd regular meeting.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is item number 10. This is presentation of my Mayor's Awards for the 2018 calendar year, and these are revitalization awards. And in 2017, it was my first time to do that, and I attempted to. My goal was to pick one commercial enterprise in the what I call the historic district, the Old Town Historic District, and one on the other side of Buchanan heading out to Veterans Memorial Drive. It's a very difficult decision to make, but I'm looking for somebody that's shown a great project to reinvest in our community, to revitalize it, refresh it. And, I consider a lot of factors. Curb appeal can be one factor. Giving back to the community can be another factor. The amount of buzz that it generates in the community, the ability to attract customers and tourists and other factors like that. So I don't really have a set list of criteria that I use, but I'm looking for someone along those lines that just really shows that they are here for the long haul and want to reinvest in our community and make it a better place. And so last year I chose All Mountain Cyclery as one of those, and the TAP is the other one. And this year's awards go to M-Tile and Design and to the Cottages. M-Tile and Design is on Nevada Way, near 5th Street, and it's at the location of the former Boulder City Treasures. I don't know how many people are familiar with that one, but it's kind of a small business, kind of tucked away right there next to the Southwest Diner. It's at a really key location, in my opinion, because it's the entrance to our historic district. And the renovation of the showroom has been phenomenal. If you look on their website, it's really cool. The products they have, they specialize in flooring and wall coverings of all sorts, both domestic and foreign. And the tile on the fascia outside the building is exemplary of what the products they have in there. I think they're still working on their sign out there. I didn't notice as I was driving by tonight if that's been done yet. But if you remember the house on Georgia that was renovated on HGTV, I believe M-Tile and Design had a part in that. And so based on all those things and just I think the business that they're attracting to our community and the investment they put into that just shows that they're here to stay for the long haul, and they have faith in what we're doing. And so, one of my awards goes to them, and we'll invite Michelle King, if she's here tonight, to come on up. Come on up. We'll step down, council, and. Oh, yes, I forgot my awards. So, yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. And this is really from all of council. So.
Oh, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it, and we're just so glad to be part of the community. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Come on, Peggy.
I'm coming.
I had to do the slapping.
I'll take a couple of them. Here we go. Ready? Great. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Would you like to say a few words?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Sure.
All right, there we go. No, honestly, this was a surprise, and we really do just want to thank the City of Boulder City and Mayor Woodbury and the Chamber, Jill, and whoever was a part of this selection process. We started our business about 3 years ago here in Boulder City, and I remember living in Arizona saying, if I'm going to come back to Nevada, Southern Nevada, I'm going to live in Boulder City. That was my only stipulation of coming here. It's a fabulous town, and being a Southern Nevada native, I just fell in love with it and moved here about 3 years ago and decided that Bill and myself wanted to start a company that would just be something that we could do that we felt that the community needed. We actually felt that the community needed a tile store. And we literally have been in business for 3 years and have doubled our business and moved into the new location on Nevada Way from over on Wyoming. And we truly believe that that's a part of the support from the community. Just word of mouth and everyone coming in and supporting us and welcoming us here and understanding what we do and what we can offer. And, that growth is just really led us to kind of build where we are now. And we're really grateful. And this means a lot to us because it's recognizing that we are investing back in the community. And it's a risk, we're up here with 17,000 people. We could be down in the valley with 2 million people, but it's just not our business model. We feel comfortable up here. And we're just super excited, and we hope we can stay here for a long time. And we're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, so we'll have council stay here. But so the cottages is the second one, and cottages was developed by RPS Homes, and just kind of following on last year with All Mountain Cyclery. I always have trouble saying that. It's a mouthful. But that whole corridor along there, I think, is just ripe for being renovated. And it's kind of a domino effect between there and Buchanan. And, there are other businesses out there, too, that have come in recent years that I could have given the award to if had I been to it in past years. Chili Jilly's is one on the other side of the street. But just coming back from where the cyclery shop is, we've had a couple of businesses go in there, and the cottages right by that by the old airport hangar, and I think we'll see more in the years to come. But RPS Homes has been investing in our community for 20 plus years now. It's a great project. If you haven't driven down in there, go check it out. The landscaping's phenomenal. Lots of great reports from those who have purchased there. Cool design, and I believe most of them are sold out as well. So appreciate your investment in our community over the many years, in particular for this latest project. And we'll invite you to come on up, whoever you've got with you. Let's take a photo first, and then we'll hand the mic to you. Okay, here we go.
Thank you guys so much for supporting us for it's about 26 years. I moved here when I was 6 years old with my dad and my mom and my sisters. And we've done a number of communities here, and all of them have been very, very successful because of word of mouth. And it's been phenomenal, and I hope we continue to build here and only do good things. I can't tell you how much happier I am driving into Boulder City every single day and seeing that community. And I'm actually going to be living down there, so that's how much I love it. And, that's really it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess that.
Sit down.
So RPS Homes has given back to the community in a lot of ways too. As you know, we recently had a new roof put on the old water filtration plant by Scott Donnelly and his company, and RPS Homes a few years ago did the roof on the Boulder Dam Hotel. And so without companies like that really are willing to give back to the community, we couldn't sustain a lot of these nonprofits we have in town. So thank you again for that. All right, we are on to item number 11, is consideration of bill number 1843.
About your contracts and real estate manager. This is Bill 1843, an ordinance of the city approving an option agreement between Boulder City and Silver Peak Solar LLC. It's an option to lease approximately 276 acres of land in the El Dorado Valley dry lake bed. The purpose for the lease or option and eventual lease is for utility scale solar energy facility. The option itself is for a 3-year period ending in the year 2022. The initial option payment is $65,000 a year and escalates at 3% a year for the 276 acres. At such time that they exercise the option, should they choose to do so, the lease rate will be $1,000 per acre for the 276 acres, or $276,000 a year. The annual escalator to the lease, meaning each year how much the lease goes up, is 0.75%. The initial term for the lease, if exercised, will be 30 years with 2 10-year options. Should they choose to exercise the option and enter into a lease, the initial 30-year term will generate $9.9 million in lease payments for the city. I believe up on the screens is the map. The area that is proposed to be optioned is that brown area between the green and purple areas. It's immediately adjacent to the SunPower option areas, which are the purple areas, and the Techrin current lease area and option areas, which are the green areas up to the west. The map does identify those areas that are currently under option, where we anticipate that at some point in time in the near future, those options will be exercised for some solar projects. And this is right there in that mix. A little bit of history of this site was previously leased to Korean Midland Power, also known as Komipo. They had some internal issues in Korea, so they sold their option or their lease to SunPower, who then, at such time when they realized to fix the property tax issue, converted their lease to an option. And at that time, they adjusted the option boundaries to the purple shapes that we see there now. It was their belief that they couldn't develop land in the dry lake bed because in a 100-year flood, it would be under up to 3 to 4 feet of water. Techrin Solar, the parent company of Silver Peak, looked at the site and decided their model for solar energy development would not be affected in a 100-year flood or worse. Should there be more standing water, it's just a matter of how deep they put the pylons and how high they put the tables for the cabling. So they came to staff and we worked out the option agreement for this site. As I've said at previous meetings, this site is not part of the proposed land management plan amendment as proposed by Silver Peak for additional acres. That part is to the north. If Holly would show, well, actually I can show that next screen, maybe. And of course my little clicker died. There we go. This aerial photo was prepared by Mr. Harhay, and we kindly took up his offer and grabbed it off his Facebook page. And this is looking at the dry lake bed from a different perspective, from the north looking south. And so the parcel that we're talking about today is listed as number 2 on that map. Area 3 is what's being possibly considered at the next city council meeting for the land management plan, and then the balance of the lake's not being considered at all. So at this point, I'm ready to answer any questions if you have any. Mr. Larry Green is here from Silver Peak Solar to answer any questions if you have any of him.
Okay, thank you. So can we put that last, yeah, that's a good photo. Thank you, Mr. Harhay, for making that available. I remember when site number 2, the one that's under consideration tonight, was brought before us. This was a few years ago at least, because I remember that Councilman Duncan McCoy had concerns about not being able to visualize this, and so this is why this is a great thing. I know it's still a little difficult, but So number 2, which is under consideration tonight, is already in the land management plan.
That's correct.
And it was previously leased to Comipo and then to Boulder Solar 1. That's to be distinguished from number 3, which is not in the land management plan and is in the subsequent meeting 2 weeks from now is only up for consideration as to whether it would be included in the land management plan. And that's the one that went to the Planning Commission recently, right?
That's correct.
And their recommendations were made on that particular piece. So those, as Mr. Hunt pointed out at the start, there is a distinction between the two. As far as access goes to the dry lake, as you can see, the highway kind of is tangential or contiguous to number 4. That's not under consideration at all. That's where all the access to the dry lake is generally from, because as you go further down, you can see the highway separates from the dry lake, and there's vegetation along the edge of the highway that is really kind of difficult to get through to have access anyway. And as you get down into number 2, you start actually having a little bit of vegetation on the lake bed itself there. So there are substantial differences. But anyway, I just wanted to point out the distinctions between 2 and 3. 2 is on the land management plan and has been previously leased and is up for consideration tonight. 3 is not up for consideration tonight, is not even on the land management plan yet. Okay, so with that preface, I'll open it up to City Council for discussion. Mr. McManus.
Mr. Armentrout, I have a zoning map that the date on here, reprint date says June 2017, and there's a note on here, last amendment to it was March 28 of 2017. And it's showing the dry lake area is being zoned as government park. It appears that the parcel that's under consideration tonight has been rezoned to energy zone. Are you familiar with that? Your name's on the map, so.
Yeah. I believe the rezoning occurred quite some time ago when Comipo had the lease. And the zoning boundaries at that time should have matched their lease boundary.
Okay, and on the graphic that was up earlier, then sections 3 and 4 would still be zoned as government park?
That's correct.
As far as you know?
I believe they've changed.
Have changed or not changed?
Looking at the map we have over here on the wall,
yes.
They still remain government park.
Okay, so we're not talking about the other parcel, the 667 acres that's designated as number 3. That would not only require being put on the land management plan, but also a zoning change?
A zoning change and a master plan change.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
This parcel originally was placed in the land management plan, I believe, in 2009.
That's my recollection, yes.
Yeah, and I went back and wanted to get the complete history on those parcels, since there has been some confusion among folks. And it's interesting to note from the record that when that appeared before the Planning Commission, there were 2 individuals that objected to it being placed in the land management plan. Both of those individuals owned land that was near or adjacent to that particular area. There was one person that spoke for it. Later, when the council considered the recommendation of the Planning Commission, they approved the Planning Commission's recommendation to put it into the land management plan with no objection at all from the public, but one person speaking for it. So there's quite a long history. Right now, about 10 years, it's been in the land management plan continuously since that time. And my examination of that area, it's really not usable for recreation because of the vegetation and the topography at that southernmost part of the dry lake.
Thank you. And I would add to that, in my experience, as limited as it may be, it is not only is it not usable, it's not used, generally speaking, by the public for recreational purposes. It's so far south, and it's got those blockages to it that they just don't use it that far down. Any further comment on this? We'll invite Mr. Green. Do you wish to say anything tonight?
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Larry Green. I'm with 174 Power Global, and I'm the developer of the Techrin project, as well as Boulder Solar and Silver Peak projects. We've acquired SunPower's interest in the remaining lands at Boulder Solar. So I have been in the renewable energy development business in El Dorado Valley and elsewhere in Nevada for 20 years. It's been a pleasure to work with the city over many years to bring these solar projects to fruition. And again, I'm here to request approval for an option agreement for the 276 acres to develop a 50 megawatt project at Silver Peak. My company is in a position where we have assembled over a great deal of time, assembled the required permits, the required interconnection agreements, the required electricity transmission agreements, and we feel that we're in a great position to advance this project at Silver Peak for 50 megawatts. And in a time frame that allows the project to take advantage of the expiring federal tax credits, which are important because right now they provide 30% of the capital costs of these projects, making these projects attractive to utility off-takers such as NV Energy, who we've contracted our other projects with. I'm happy to answer any questions, but again, our interest is in this parcel 32, which was previously leased to SunPower and then relinquished by them, and we're interested in that parcel.
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned at the end there about NV Energy. So my understanding is, at least so far, all of Techrin's projects have been transmitting power to Nevada, right, as opposed to California?
Correct. Both Techrin and Boulder Solar, all of those projects deliver energy to NV Energy.
Yeah, we had a long period of time, my first 4 or 5 years on City Council, where everything that was built out there was transmitted to California because of the quotas there, but we've seen a turn in that, and I think that's good for Nevada, so thank you. And Mr. Armentrout, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you may have said this in your presentation, but the agreed amount is above market value, correct?
That's correct. We did have it appraised, and the $1,000 an acre is above the appraised value.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll open this item up to public comment if there be any. In the back, James, please.
James Adams. There's no debating that our solar leases have been a huge boon to Boulder City, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who doesn't have best wishes for our solar partners. But does anyone here on City Council actually believe that the people of Boulder City want to see our dry lake bed developed, the dry lake bed specifically? It's been argued that if people didn't wish to see this portion of the dry lake bed developed or this parcel developed, that they should have spoken up 10 years ago. I'm curious, what percentage of people does the council believe were properly aware of that plan to develop the dry lake bed at that time? It seems to me that proper consent can only be given by those who've been properly informed. There's also been it's just that kind of attitude where if they should have done something better. They should have known and they should have acted earlier because now our hands are tied. And it kind of leaves us feeling like we're playing pin the tail on the donkey. What's the city going to be doing? And, we're not always aware, and it's hard to keep up with everything for a lot of us. But it's also been argued that if we were to change right now, after all of this good faith negotiating that has been done over the last several months, that we would shake the faith of our potential business prospects. But I haven't heard the argument of potentially shaking the faith of the citizenry, of once again, here we are developing out in an area that, at least to the people that I have spoken to, don't want to see developed. I'm just now hearing the argument that, oh, well, that area can't even be used for recreation. Meanwhile, I believe it was Brock Armentrout earlier on Facebook who mentioned, well, you can actually recreate out in the tortoise areas, where those are. That land is far more inhospitable to recreation than the dry lake bed because of some of the vegetation. So I believe that argument is also a little nil. Once again, I mean, that entire area is going to be developed. That entire surrounding area of the dry lake bed has plans to be developed for solar development. And we're talking about a little portion, 276 acres, that I believe many of us would like to see preserved. I don't think it's worth it. I think it sets a bad precedent. And I think once we keep giving for each inch, they'll want to take a mile. We already saw how far they want to go up with the dry lake bed. I just would like to say that I hope that you on the council, I believe that you're not there to represent our best or better judgment, but you're there to represent our voice and our concerns. And I'm not sure that our voice or our concern had been really felt out in a lot of the last 6-8 months of negotiating. I'm not sure how long it's been going on, but I'm not sure of how much the city has been working to inform the citizenry of just how much development will be happening down there in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any others?
Ray Turner. I'm pleased to see somebody else had some of the same ideas I had. And so James hit the nail on the head. The dry lake bed is an enormously important feature of southern Nevada, not just southern Nevada, Boulder City and southern Nevada. But it's very, very important. And I'd like to see more attention paid to us being better informed, because we're not informed well enough. It's pretty obvious, It's been how many years now? It's been obvious. We're poorly informed, and we can do a better job. The utility mailer is a great way to provide information to the citizenry, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, well, we just don't have the resources for that. But we have the resources to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants and surveys and analysis, but yet there doesn't seem to be much that's being done for us. It seems to be the city is serving an industry, a development industry, whether that be solar, housing, whatever. We're not being listened to. And it's been 10 years, so people are better informed. We want the dry lake bed, so please don't develop it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Christina Kelly, in response to the comment that was made that the southern portion that's being considered isn't usable as recreation, as a motorcyclist who uses that area, that is actually the best part of the dry lake bed to use. Much of the rest of it gets rutted up by people in large vehicles who go out when it rains. There's ruts, there's holes, and on a motorcycle you have to be very cautious of that. That southern area is the part that doesn't get used by those larger vehicles, and so smaller vehicles like motorcycles actually are able to use that area more than any of the rest of the dry lake bed. Not only that, but in agreement with the other two gentlemen, once you give up some of it, the rest of it's going to go as well. And I would really like to see the council do something to protect the entire dry lake bed from development. The surrounding area is one thing, but the lake bed itself should stay for recreational use. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public comment and come back to council for further discussion or action. Mr. Harvey?
Just as a comment, I have and frequently encouraged citizens to contact council with their concerns regarding pending items on the agenda, either pro or con, so that appropriate research could be done on their concerns so that we as council members can move forward with an informed decision and with the background of those people that wish to comment. In regards to this particular item, I've received 6, that's in the number 6, emails in response to this particular agenda item. That's not an overwhelming number. That's not saying that those 6 are not important. However, when you take a look at what has happened over the history of this, it has already been removed from usage as a recreational area. It's already in the land management plan. And when we place something in the land management plan, it's tantamount to advertising it, that it's for sale, that we're open to people who have an interest in purchasing or leasing it. And as I mentioned before, it has been in the land management plan for 10 years. And now at the 11th hour and the 59th minute before we're to cast a decision as to whether we're going to approve this lease, we hear a number of voices here at council. I'm still looking back and saying, this is not the time to remove it from the land management plan. The time to consider that is if there is a future request to put additional land into the land management plan, that is the time before it's advertised for sale. Anyone that's in business knows that they see an advertisement for something, or even any consumer. You see an advertisement for something that you can buy is on sale or not on sale, but you decide to follow up on that advertisement. You go down to the store and you say, I want it. And the salesman says, you got it. And you go to say, okay, well, I want to pay for it. And you say, well, I'm sorry, the sales manager is not going to approve the deal. But you were willing to pay the asking price. In some cases, you're willing to pay even a premium to get that product. Well, we have much the same situation here. If we were to turn this down at this particular time, I personally think it's inappropriate. Being a businessman in the past myself, I wouldn't be negotiating with somebody on a good faith basis. And if I had an extensive negotiation that would lead me to make further investment until the formality of a closing took place, I would do so. But then to arrive at the last minute, as I indicated, and have a second thoughts. Now, let's say we did that. Okay, let's say we said no deal. We're going to keep that 275 acres from being developed any further. We're going to remove it from the land management plan. What would that impact be on the next person, next entity that wants to do business with the city and is responding to either a request for a proposal or a advertisement in the land management plan for available lands? I don't think we would be damaging a reputation, and we'd be creating a lot of ill will. So the time, again, to raise your objections is before it's ever put into the land management plan. And as I indicated before, it's been in the land management plan now for 10 years. And over that 10 years, there's been very little objection in the history of those particular parcels. They've been under continuous leasehold option. So I just want to let my feelings be known in terms of my experience as a businessman, as well as now as a representative of the people. I understand it's a valuable resource, and at the present time, any further encroachment into the dry lake area would have to be very seriously considered before I would move forward to approve such a move. But right now, this is a done deal, essentially, except for the fact that the final approval of this release, a transfer of the lease from one entity to another, to complete what had been started in 2009. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd have to agree with Councilman Harhe, most of what he said, especially on the business deal points regarding this. As you go back and you look at the history, we have been talking about this piece for many, many years, and it makes sense to move forward with the development of this 275. It also makes sense to keep negotiating in good faith with Techrin and our other solar partners and continue to look for ways to create renewable energy in the El Dorado Valley. These items that we see here tonight on the agenda, it's kind of ironic because later we're going to talk about how to raise money to build an aquatic center. And I see quite a tie between the two. Solar leases and capital projects, utility infrastructure, things like that. These things are tied in together. So without reiterating too much of what Councilman Harhe just said, I too agree that where we are in this negotiation and where we are with this option agreement, purely from a real estate perspective, means that we need to honor the agreements that we made a long time ago and stick with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McManus.
Would it be possible to bring up page 81 of the packet, Holly? The reason I'm asking for that to be brought up is that was an item that has already been introduced earlier tonight regarding another solar lease. And just to give the public a little bit of perspective on it, I also have a different perspective about the land management plan. It's probably been the most abused process that we have here in Boulder City. For many years, the discussion was, well, we can't even discuss any land until it goes on the land management plan. And now we're being told, well, once it's on the land management plan, then that means that it's ready for lease or sale or something of that nature. In 2 weeks, we'll be talking about the land management plan. I believe there are some 50 or more parcels on there right now. Many have been sitting on there for years. People forget that they get put on there. Then all of a sudden something comes up, it becomes an issue. One of the things that I spoke with city staff about yesterday, we need to get a map and get it out so that people understand here in Boulder City what these projects are being planned for and how it's going to affect El Dorado Valley. They now have this up on the screen here. Again, this was item 7 on the agenda tonight. If you take a look at that, you'll see that it starts out just to the west of the airport, runs all along I-11 there, and even stretches across US 95 over towards the dry lake bed. I guess we blew it up, huh? Okay, so if you look, it's just south of the golf course and just to the west of the airport, running along the I-11 there. That's a significant project. You're going to see that take up a considerable amount of land. The other thing that is happening is because of changes in legislation here in Nevada, in California, solar energy is becoming much more attractive now. It's economical now to produce that. So we have companies now that are starting to look in earnest, not at just optioning this land, but at actually starting these projects and getting information out to the public to let them know what's being planned, I think is essential. But it's also important to Boulder City. The revenue right now accounts for about 1/3 of our revenue of the city. That's very important. Keeps our property taxes very low compared to the rest of the state. It delivers a lot of benefits for our community. But one day we're going to wake up and look down there in the valley and be able to see our reflection out of all the solar panels down there. So I think it's very important that we get that information out. Someone mentioned earlier during public comment, we have a utility mailer that goes out every month that can be put out there. We have a communications manager who's done a great job in getting social media ramped up. We need to get that information out. again, as has been pointed out by other council members, this project's been in the works for 10 years. There are other projects out there that have been in the works for a long time that have not been developed. It's going to come as a surprise to some people how much of that land out there has already been put on that land management plan. So again, I think we're doing a disservice to the public to say, well, you should have spoken up earlier. And the way that the land management plan has been treated in the past as being